Subscribe to the channel and comment, I subscribe. We'll try to reply to all comments.
Thank you. So you keep telling me that I can't get it wrong.
Well, we tell Esther that too, and yesterday she didn't really believe it for a little bit because it felt really wrong. But if it's wrong, it's just not done. If it feels wrong, it's just not done. You can't get it wrong long term, only short term. We have a little bit of a ring going on up here.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say that I'm having a little difficulty agreeing with you on that.
Well, we cannot convince you when you're standing in the middle of unwanted things and focusing on them, because we get it. Okay. When things are manifesting around you that you don't want, you got to call it wrong. And it's not wrong to call it wrong. But we would use the word unwanted, and we would also use the word temporary, which softens it. It's temporarily unwanted. And then we would try to go general. Want to talk about it?
I can't get into too much detail, but there's a circumstance in my life that an opportunity that I had will never come again.
Well,
and
fine, but all opportunities aren't dried up. And you know, when a chance of a lifetime comes, or it feels like that, and it feels like you missed it, you get a really big bounce out of that. Because when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. When you sort of know what you don't want, you sort of know what you do want. But when you really want something and it feels like you missed it, there's a really big bounce that comes out of that, to which you are not vibrationally prepared. So then you make an accurate statement. You say, oh wow, that it was so big and I missed it, and the absence of it looms so large that it just kind of has your undivided attention for a little while. But we want to tell you that your inner being and we are focused upon the bounce that you took and the bigger possibility. We could call it a possibility, we could call it a probability. We want to call it a certainty, a bigger certainty, but you can't see it. And nothing is more annoying than for someone who thinks they can see something that you can't see to tell you that it's really there. We get that it's annoying. But it is our promise to you that as you settle down from the disappointment of the chance that you think you missed, there's a bigger prize because of that missed chance, that once you get your senses about you, that will reveal itself to you. And you have to know people. You have to have heard that from a lot of people, whether you knew them personally or whether you just read about them, who had big disappointments before they had their big successes, because their successes, the bigger they are, were often parlayed into bigness by those. It's sort of like molding the clay. If you were sculpting clay, you wouldn't take a big wad of it and slap it down on the table and then complain, well, that doesn't look that good. You'd want to get your hand, and it wouldn't be that good the first time or the second time or the third time. You're going to mess with that quite a bit. You're going to figure out how to make it do what you want to do. You've got an image in your mind, and you're translating the image in your mind to the image in your hands. It takes some practice to do that, and molding this energy of life takes some practice to do it too. But you can't beat the drum of disappointment that brings the feeling of disappointment without just widening the gap between what's waiting. That's why we started out this conversation today. Your work is to prepare yourself vibrationally for the receiving of that we have a little convincing to do with you to even help you believe that it's there, because you thought you saw it, you thought it was tangible, and you think you missed it. And the whole idea of this vibrational reality, we know, is annoying. We know it is.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that.
Well, it is what it is, and you are where you are. But what are you going to do about that? In other words, there are so many people that miss an opportunity and then just complain about it forevermore. And that's the reputation that they have with friends, that they're just going to complain about they were at the dock and the ship came and they missed it. And we say, but there's another ship and another ship and another ship and another ship and another ship. There are so many ships coming, but if you're complaining about the one you missed, you never show up at the right time. Whoop, missed it again. Whoop, missed it again. Whoop, missed it again. Whoop, missed it again. We say, of course you did, because vibrationally you weren't in sync with it. This is a vibrational universe. Do you know how, just in very rudimentary conversation, do you know how you have to tune your transmitters and receivers for radios or television or cell phones? You have to tune them precisely to the frequency in order to have a satisfying experience. You understand that completely. No one. You get up on the roof and you move that dish and you move it and you move it and you move it and you move it and you move it. You know you got to lock onto the signal or you're not going to have a satisfying experience. And yet it goes over your head relative to your own point of attraction. You got to tune your dish. You got to tune it. And when you feel bad, you got to point it in the opposite direction of where the signal is, where the clues are, where the fun is, you see. We know you want the manifestation, and we want you to have it too. But the manifestation is not the big deal you think it is. The manifestation is just the final awareness that you've been on the right track. But being on the right track is what life is. It's the unfolding that's the fun part. And that's the disappointment that you're feeling so much. You were on the track, on the track, on the track. When it was possible, when you were believing it, when you were moving toward it, it was life-giving. And now you think you've lost that, but you haven't lost it. There's just a bigger prize that you're on your way to. Seriously.
Thank you. I feel complete.
You'll enjoy it as we're moving forward, and it is our promise to you that today, just as a result of sitting in and listening in, your frequency will shift enough that you'll have evidence of movement quickly. Today, tomorrow, the next day, for sure. For sure.
Thank you.
For sure. And then say, I did that. I felt the shift within me. You're already feeling it. You feel better.
Yep.
Feels better to be acknowledged. Feels better to know that there's more coming. Feels better. These are really general terms. And when you said, well, I can't get specific, we want to say good. Good, because the specifics will take you right out in the weeds again. You don't want to be specific. You want to stay off the specifics of it and go general. Things are working out for me eventually. And I get this conceptually. Very good.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
So I get when things are going bad, and it seems like they just keep going bad as you acknowledge them. But what about when things are going right? So I'm going to use an example. Going to work, I have to go through about 9 traffic lights. If I don't acknowledge the lights, if I get green, 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 and don't acknowledge them, I get all green. As soon as I go, thank you for getting all green, I get a red.
Well, this is a really, really good conversation because, and you're going to understand this perfectly. Every subject is really 2 subjects, wanted and absence of wanted. So sometimes, in fact often, without realizing it, when you're picking up the stick that says thank you for the green light, you are pushing just a little bit against the red light. In other words, the most significant thing that you said is, if I'm not thinking about it. If I'm not thinking about it, then I don't activate it where I've last left it. But when you then say, thank you for the green light, you might be saying, thank you for not giving me the red light. Thank you for not giving me the red light. It's subtle, we know. It's subtle. There's a very subtle difference, especially about something like that that's not too significant. So you're not going to get really strong or positive or negative emotion. We don't think that you are yahooing through the green lights necessarily or cursing the red lights. In other words, it's not something that's a really big thing to you. But do you follow that?
I follow that, but when things are going well in life, I mean, when things line up and I'm aligned with them, and if I acknowledge that, it seems like it stops.
Well, you see, you're sort of describing what we were wanting to convey with the story about Esther and her credit card. Esther was not worried about anything in a significant way. She knows that she has the resources and the wherewithal and enough contacts and enough cash in her briefcase. In other words, she's not really worried about anything. But it was a subtle uneasiness that was not as subtle as she wanted to pretend that it was. In other words, she had a vibration going on that she would not admit to. She would not admit to that until it manifested and became so blatantly obvious, because she's wise enough to know that nothing comes that is not active in her vibration. So that's the premise that we would begin with. Everything that happens to me happens because of a vibrational frequency. And if I've got a frequency going on that I don't know I've got going on, a manifestation will help me to know I've got it going on. Don't you like it?
I like it.
What we want you to do is not argue with the manifestational evidence.
So don't acknowledge it, just kind of do
acknowledging it is a wonderful thing, but don't argue with the manifestational evidence, because when you say, Abraham, I'm having an experience that I don't think I had going on vibrationally, we say, then we've got a problem. Because if you're saying I'm getting something different than I'm offering vibrationally, then there's no possibility of getting it lined up. If you're saying, well, I can acknowledge that I must have a vibration going on that I'm not aware of, and now it's my intention to be more sensitive to the vibration I've got going on, then
got it.
Yeah. Ooh, isn't it juicy and delicious?
It is.
And don't you love fine-tuning on something that matters so little?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
It's as easy to create a castle as a button. You just got to want it and allow it, and it is. And the universe does not distinguish, well, this isn't very important, so let him have a red light. There's nothing like that going on. In other words, you always get exactly what you've got going on vibrationally, no exceptions every single time. So if it matters and you're getting something different than what you want, you've got some tuning to do. And that's really why we are taking such delight in this conversation of the grid. Because grid, you get it conceptually? Grid is the same word as my point of attraction. My point of attraction. I've got this vibrational grid that I can't see and no one else can either. It's my frequency that I've been practicing. I practice it when I talk to that friend, and I practice it when I watch that television program, and I practice a different grid with different people. But the grids that I've got going on are filling in, filling in, filling in, filling in, filling in, filling in, filling in. So there's two ways that you can know in advance what's coming. Well, there's really only one way to know in advance what's coming, how you're feeling. There's two ways of knowing what you're creating, how it feels before it gets there and how it feels after it gets there. In other words, we just think pre-manifestational awareness is delicious.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.